Cybercrime is out of control. Personal information and money is being stolen at unprecedented rates. Financial losses from cybercrime reached a record high last year, $12.5 billion according to the FBI, $12.5 billion. And it's probably much higher than that because many victims don't report their losses. So how do we stop this crime spree? Seems like the bad guys are always coming up with new ways to get around the latest security tools. Well, here's some good news. Tech experts say they've come up with a new way to stop criminals from stealing passwords, which should dramatically reduce the damage these crooks can do. It's a new type of login credential called a passkey, and digital security experts tell me it's a game changer. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, a contributing editor at checkbook.org.
Welcome to Consumerpedia at checkbook.org. We're the nonprofit that helps consumers select services, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on checkbook.org to be completely independent and objective. Now, here's the host of Consumerpedia, America's consumer expert, the Consumer Man, Herb Weisbaum.
Let's be honest, no one really likes passwords. Even the best ones are no match for today's international crime rings. So the push is on, led by Microsoft, Apple, and Google, to get you to switch from passwords to passkeys. So just what are passkeys, and are they really better than passwords? Let's find out. My guest is Alex Weinert, Vice President for Identity Security at Microsoft. Alex, thanks for taking time to talk to us.
Thank you.
So Alex, let's start with Microsoft's position on passwords. You've been talking about the need to move past passwords for years now.
Absolutely. I think password security has been proven to be just fundamentally unworkable. And the usability is pretty terrible too. People forget them because they have to try to remember them. They're putting them on a sticky note. But the bigger problem is reusing the same password across multiple sites. They're just not a good user experience, and they're not a good security model. There's no password you couldn't break if you really wanted to.
And some of the figures I've seen from Microsoft published recently are that attacks on passwords, the kind of attacks you're seeing, are horrendous right now. They're increasing astronomically.
Yeah, attack rates, we started measuring this and publishing the attack rates several years ago. And at some point, it became easier to talk about the attacks per second than it was to talk about attacks per month because the numbers were so high. And in 2023, we measured north of 4,000 password attacks every second. And that's just what we're observing. So you have to assume that our buddies at Amazon and Google and other places are seeing the same kind of a volume. So passwords are under basically constant attack. There are data breaches and people's usernames and passwords get out. And because people reuse passwords across sites, attackers are able to replay those and take your password from place A where it got stolen and then try it against place B and place C.
And when you say a password attack, that's when the criminals are using algorithms to try to take stolen passwords and see if they can break into other accounts, right?
Yeah, that stolen passwords is one. The second big one is where, unfortunately, humans, as much as we are all very unique, when you give somebody a rule like uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and a special, the chances are excellent they're going to pick a password like capital P, password 1, exclamation mark. And the studies on this are really stark. Like if you have an uppercase requirement, it's going to be the first letter. If you have numbers requirement, it's going to go at the end. If you have a special character, it's going to be an exclamation mark. And so because of that, passwords are really easy to guess. So there's a huge preference for people to use like QWERTY IOUP because they can just run their finger across the keyboard. Or I love you, the phrase I love you is a really popular password. The word password is a really popular password. And they're so popular that if I just go into a random population and I use, like these top 10 passwords, I'm going to get about 1% of those accounts are going to break and I can penetrate them. So the other thing that we see is that attackers take these long lists just of your username, just of your email address, and they'll get millions of these things collected. And then they go through and they just try the same password. They'll try, password 123 exclamation mark, and they'll just try that password against all of these millions of accounts, and some number of them it'll work. Then they'll try QWERTY IOUP against them all, and some number of them it'll work. And then they'll try I love you, and it'll work on some number. So these top passwords get used by the attackers. That's called a password spray, where I'm taking a big list of accounts. I don't know the password, but I know what people generally use. I take those most popular passwords and I try it and I break them. The third major mechanism is just phishing, which is where I would send you a mail saying, hey, check out this crazy video. Look at what Alex was doing last weekend. I can't believe it. Something like that. Or, oh, we're going to close your account if you don't respond. Or, hey, there's a package waiting for you. All those are designed to do the same thing, which is to trick you to go to a login page and then type in your password. And it's not a real page, but the attacker doesn't care because now you've given away your username and password. And that's called phishing. And that's the third major vector. So those three vectors together account for most password attacks.
Now, security experts have been telling us for years now that the way to beat the bad guys is to use multi-factor authentication. I remember talking to you back in 2018 when I was with NBCnews.com, and you said regardless of the password, MFA correlates with a 99% reduction in the rate of compromises. So then why isn't MFA good enough to handle the threats that are coming to us anymore?
We just redid the study and is 99.2% risk reduction for using any kind of MFA at all. So we should be clear that like a password with MFA is infinitely better than one without. What we're seeing, though, is that attackers, as more and more people are adopting multi-factor auth, 0.7% in 2017 and now up to 40% of the business space in 2024. So we've made good progress. What's happening is the attackers are shifting their tactics. So now that there are more and more accounts that are using MFA, they're coming up with attacks that target MFA. There are attacks like taking over your cell phone line or social engineering you or doing what's called adversary in the middle phishing, which is where I trick you into going to a site that it actually handles the MFA challenge as well. So the attacker still gets access to your account. For that, the technology that you want to go to and that we really encourage everybody to move to now is called Passkeys. And so Passkeys are a technology that was designed specifically to be a very easy to use credential that resists these next generation attacks. So as the attackers are turning away from password guessing and to social engineering, for example, use of a passkey can protect you from that social engineering attack.
So let's start with Passkey 101. What's a passkey and how does it work?
So a passkey is a replacement for a password. It's a way that you can sign in. It's integrated into all the major platforms. So, Android and iOS and Windows all support it. And the way to think of it is you register to say, I want to sign in from this device to that account. Just like you would normally have to choose a password. Instead, you register your passkey. And that's a super simple thing of essentially pointing your phone at your screen. If you're on a different device or if you're on your phone, it's even easier. You just say, yes, I want a passkey for this site. And once that happens, the camera in your phone or on your PC, there's a print that is essentially done that is a biometric unlock, but that is a local thing. It's only on your phone. So nobody's shipping that data anywhere and it stays secure. It creates a way of signing in that is rooted in that machine. It's called a cryptographic key pair. So it essentially allows you to sign and say, this is coming from this machine, and it has to be unlocked with your face print or your PIN. So you can think of it as a password, except for you don't have to remember a password. You don't have to generate one. You don't have to store it. You don't have to worry about somebody stealing it. Nobody can trick you into giving it away. And the gesture to use it is to literally just say, okay, I want to sign in. You don't have to think, it's so much easier, right? Because there's none of that nonsense around okay, first I'm going to try to remember what my password was, go find where I wrote that down, type it in wrong a couple times. And then I have to get a code, so then I have to go find my phone, and then I have to type the number across, from my phone, and all that nonsense goes away. It's a single gesture, but it's actually much, much stronger because of the underlying design, that it's rooted in the secure element of the device that it's coming from, and it's using either your biometric or a PIN to unlock that element. Much easier to use, much, much, much more secure.
So if I put the passkey on my desktop, can I use it on my other mobile devices or vice versa?
Yeah, so passkeys by all the platform providers are something that can be synchronized across devices. So a classic example is, I have my passkey on my phone and then I lose my phone and I have to get a new phone. I don't want to lose access to all my accounts because I was trusting the phone to store that stuff. And so all of the providers, that we were talking about, all the major device providers are implementing synchronization of these passkeys so that if you choose to, they can move within the cloud of those events. And you've done this probably if you've ever gotten a new phone. There's that thing where it's like, hey, do you have an existing phone? Let's move your stuff over. And the passkeys would move as part of that move process. It's done very securely. It requires your presence. It requires that both devices are present. So it's a very good secure process, but it does move so you don't have to worry about that lost phone scenario.
One key point, and I think this is critical, my biometric data to prove who I am to get these passkeys to work is stored on my device, my PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Microsoft, Google, Apple, Meta, whatever, these companies don't get this information. You're not storing it in the cloud. Did I get that right from what you said?
That's correct. That's correct actually for Windows Hello as well. Windows Hello being, kind of our, like on the device, that's essentially where the passkeys are. We are very careful to not let biometric data roam, to let it move. So the biometric is used to unlock on the local device. So the conversation is essentially between your camera on your phone and the secure element on your phone, right? There's nothing being stored. There's nothing being transmitted. It's all local access. It's just like when you do face unlock on your phone, it's the same kind of process.
So let's run through a scenario here for how this would work. I unlock my smartphone using my PIN or my facial recognition or fingerprint. I want to log on to one of the sites that uses passkeys, so I put in my username, and the site would ask me if I want to log in with my password or passkey. But this doesn't happen automatically, right?
You get to the screen and you would say, I want to sign in with my passkey, and the phone will ask you, do you want to sign in? Because what you don't want is the site to automatically sign you in. So the phone will ask you, do you want to sign in? You touch the screen where it says, hey, sign in, right? And then at that point, if you have a camera-based system, the camera looks at your face and you sign in because it just does the unlock that way. If you're on a thumbprint or a PIN-based system, then you would then either touch your thumb or type in your PIN, right? And then you'd be signed in. So it's whatever you use to unlock your phone essentially is the way that you would do this gesture. You would do it again. Even if you're already on an unlocked phone, you would do the second step. And that's to prevent somebody picking up your phone when you go get a cup of coffee or whatever.
And if somebody did steal my phone and tried to log into a site and didn't have my PIN, and they certainly don't have my fingerprint or face, the site would say, sorry, not you. I'm not letting you in.
That's right. It would just be a failed sign-in, similar to like a failed password. The phone would refuse to transmit the information to the site, and so the site would say, sorry, you didn't sign in.
We've still got much more to talk about, including how quickly passkeys will take hold and how you can use them if you have a mix of Apple, Windows, and Android devices. Alex has the answers. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, and you're listening to Consumerpedia, powered by checkbook.org.
If you like what you hear, we hope you'll consider being a Consumerpedia supporter by using the link at the bottom of the show notes to make a small contribution each month. This is Consumerpedia.
Clearly, this new fraud-fighting technology is only going to work if people choose to adopt it. From what I've read, Microsoft thinks passkeys are easy enough to use that you expect really big enrollment numbers in the next 12 months.
Yeah, we're seeing a really exciting enrollment. I mean, one of the things is that for a website to accept a passkey, it's actually easier than passwords to implement, but they have to say they want to accept them. And so not every site you're going to go to is going to accept passkeys today. But more and more major sites are doing it. Like we do it, obviously iOS and Android and Amazon and others are all supporting this. And so as we're seeing the more sites are adopting it, plus all the major platforms are providing it, we're seeing quite a bit of adoptions. And our goal, is we want to see 1 billion users on Passkey in our ecosystem. When we look at the harm done by people, we talk about, your password got stolen. And sometimes it's just that embarrassing thing when you have to tell your friends, hey, I didn't send that mail. But sometimes it's like you get extorted. Sometimes the person uses that account to then get into your bank account. Sometimes you lose access to your family photos, right? Like these can be like huge life-changing events for people. And so as a person who's more or less dedicated my life to identity security, right? Like it's extremely exciting to think about a world where we take off the table literally billions of instances of people suffering real harm because they're using passwords. So this is an exciting time. And I think that the really exciting part is that we're seeing that the usability and the adoption is really good.
From what I've read, one of the things that's been slowing down this passkey adoption is that different ecosystems couldn't talk to each other. If I had a passkey on an Apple device, it couldn't easily be transferred to my Microsoft devices. But the FIDO Alliance, that's the industry association dedicated to making this new technology work, recently announced the problem was fixed, that passkeys are easily shared between different platforms.
Yeah, that's correct. Again, it's at your discretion, right? You'll have that option to share between these devices. Yeah. We should be clear, like if you were, you're an Android user, so if you have passkeys on your Android phone, you can use them to unlock things on your iPad or on your Windows device, right? That already works. What we're talking more about is that idea of like, I don't want to worry about losing one of my devices so that I'm sure that they're present on all of them. And so like in my case, I have a Windows laptop, I have an iOS phone, I have an iPad in my music studio. And each of those I could choose to let my passkeys move between those so they're always present on that device. I don't have to worry about finding the other device, but more importantly, if one of those devices goes down, I can recover access from those other devices.
I think we've all been in a situation where you try to log on and it's been a failed attempt. Maybe I typed in the wrong password. Maybe something else happened. Will Passkeys eliminate some of this frustration?
Yeah, so the thing about the passkeys is that you don't have to memorize them. You don't have to write them down. If you haven't used a passkey in a long time, your phone remembers it perfectly, right? So as long as you're retaining access to that family of devices that you have, and that can be an evolving thing, right? You might get rid of one phone, get a new phone, and the passkeys can move with it. And there's no memory burden. There's no, I forgot it. You don't have to worry about somebody guessing it. All those common attacks we talked about. Somebody calls you up on the phone and says, hey, quick, read me your password, because I'm doing maintenance on your account. Unfortunately, that works. People are phished that way all the time. There's no way you can do that with a passkey. And in fact, a passkey, one of the cool things about the technology is it requires that you're talking to the correct person on the correct site. It uses the URL of the website, and it won't even let the passkey come out if it doesn't match. So there's all kinds of protection that you don't have to think about that's just happening for you. And then all of the things about the frustration of, you've used that password too many times, or your password's not complex enough, or it's not long enough, or, whatever it is.
Right.
All that goes away. So we just take all that trouble off the table. Once you try it, it's kind of like, oh, this is way better. I'd say if your listeners haven't actually tried this out, it's an exciting thing to do because you just recognize how much better it can be than passwords. Everything from registering it to using it is much better.
So we know the bad guys are really clever, and sooner or later, they're going to come up with something. But it seems like passkeys would reduce the ability to do a lot of things that are happening right now. Steal login information, use social engineering to get you to give the criminals your passwords. That kind of stuff can't happen anymore. With passkeys, there's nothing that you can accidentally give the crooks.
That's right. Passkeys defeat all of the common attacks that we see today, including phishing and advanced phishing and social engineering, password guessing, password replay. All of those attacks come off the table as people transition to using passkeys.
For years, we've been reading articles about the demise of passwords, but passwords aren't going away anytime in the foreseeable future. So what security precautions should you take to protect them and keep the crooks from hacking your accounts? We'll talk to Alex about that next. I'm Herb Weisbaum, and this is Consumerpedia, powered by checkbook.org.
Consumerpedia Fast Facts. Data breaches are skyrocketing. According to the Identity Theft Resource Center, there were 3,205 compromises in 2023, an increase of 78% from 2022. The total number of victims, 353 million. Since that's more than the total population in the U.S., that means some Americans had their personal information stolen more than once. The greatest cyber threats come from a relatively small number of countries, with Russia ranked number 1 overall. According to the University of Oxford, Russian cybercriminals are considered to be the most professional and technically skilled in the world, with their crimes having the most impact. About 3/4 of all account takeovers start with a bogus email, what's called a phishing attack. The specific companies most often impersonated by identity thieves are Microsoft, Apple, LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, and Amazon.
Before we go, Alex, I just want to talk about passwords. Passwords aren't going away anytime soon. Some people are familiar with them and they want to keep using them, and some sites may never enable them. So what do we need to know? Give us the rules of the road that will help protect us when we use passwords.
The most critical thing about it, I'm not going to tell you it should be long, it should be short. That's not the most critical thing. The most critical thing is you pair it with multi-factor auth if you possibly can. And any multi-factor auth at all will reduce your risk by 99% plus, right? So that's the most important aspect of a password. It's not, is it unique or is it long or is it rotating? What the most important thing is there MFA along with it? Because the password itself is fairly weak in any form. What I would suggest for people who you have to have a password and maybe multi-factor auth isn't available for it is that it's important to use unique passwords across your sites. And it's important for the passwords not to be passwords that are commonly used. An easy way to do that is to use a password manager that generates the passwords for you. But another way to do that is to have some unique to you phrase that you insert part of the website name into or something like that. But the uniqueness is important both across sites and in the general sphere. So I wouldn't use pretty IOUP on one site and I love you on another one and password 123 on another one. Those are all easy to guess. You want to avoid guessability and you want to avoid replay.
And multi-factor authentication will make even weak passwords strong because we assume assume the bad guys don't have the second factor to verify who we are.
That's right. The second factor is where the real protection is coming in. The second factor is absolutely your top priority is get second factor on there. And then if you can't do that, or if you want to do more, then you start thinking about, okay, I need a unique password. And an easy way to do that is to have a password generator generate it for you and remember it for you. Then, of course, you have to protect the password generator. But most of those companies that make those, including ours, offer very strong security around the password manager. And the password managers are built into most of the operating systems as well. Windows will generate a password for you, and it'll be unique, and it'll be remembered by the Windows platform. And then the sign into Windows is strong.
I use authenticator apps now for some of the sites I visit regularly. They're easy to use and seem just a bit safer than getting a code that someone could intercept.
I think that the authenticator apps are the best. Next to Passkeys, they're the best option, and for a variety of reasons. And of course, they will vary based on how they're implemented. But like our authenticator app does things like shows you where the authentication is coming from, warns you if there's risk, challenges with a 2-digit code. It'll resist everything except for social engineering and phishing. And even there, it gives you some help. But if you want to really prevent those attacks, you go to Passkey. Like Passkey is the future here. Now, our authenticator app can act as a Passkey host. So you can decide that you like I like my authenticator app. I want to use it for Passkey, and that's the thing you can choose to do. Or you can use the platform one, the one that's built into Android. That's okay too.
And a number of password managers now store passkeys, which makes it really, really easy.
Yeah. So our authenticator app is also a password manager and is also a passkey provider. And that's true of many of the other vendors in the space. And so you have lots of choice in this space. But I would say that if you have trepidation about downloading another app or whatever, you don't need to. If you go to a site that lets you sign up with a passkey, you can register that passkey, whether you're on a Windows device, an Android device, an iOS device. You can do that without installing any other software. It's built into the platform.
Final point, people have to realize that today's hack attacks are not coming from some smart kids sitting in their bedrooms, in their pajamas, eating popcorn and trying to break into your accounts. We're up against sophisticated criminal gangs in other countries that are using high-powered computer algorithms to do their dirty work, and we better take this seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that we as an industry are doing everything we can to help make that easier. I think it would be a dangerous misconception to think, oh, this doesn't really matter. Nobody's coming after me. There's no harm to me. You have a bank account, you have, home insurance, you have everything you have is tied into a digital account one way or the other. It's important that only you have the keys to those things.
Alex Weinert is Vice President of Identity Security at Microsoft. Alex, it was a pleasure talking to you again. Thanks for spending time with us.
Herb, it was a real pleasure for me. It's kind of an honor to get to talk to you. So awesome.
Before we go, let me suggest a few other security-related Consumerpedia episodes you might want to check out. Number 5, Cybercrime. A former cyber crook explains how to protect yourself. Fascinating conversation. Number 11, Stop Thief. How to protect yourself from identity theft. And number 48, How will scammers use AI? It's a lot of great information and good listening there for you. And with that, we've come to the end of another episode. We hope you'll rate it. Remember, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Remember, we release new episodes every other Thursday. Another way you can support this show is to follow us on Consumerpedia on Facebook and Instagram, and at My Consumerpedia on X, formerly Twitter. I'm Herb Weisbaum. Thanks for listening.
Consumerpedia is a public service of checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that helps you save money and make smarter choices. You can count on Checkbook to help you find the best services and avoid the worst, with local ratings that are accurate and unbiased. If you live in or around these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis-St. Paul, and Washington, D.C. To get your free 30-day subscription, go to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia. If you like what you've heard, we hope you'll become a supporter by using the link at the bottom of the show notes to make a small contribution each month. Consumerpedia, empowering consumers to save money and make smarter choices.